and welcome back to the last session of the day for the panel CEE Pay TV Operators Content Strategies. So for this panel, we have the pleasure to have among us Nermina Brundik from A1 Telecom Austria Group. We have Peter Wasson from Deutsche Telekom and Karina Rompa from Play Poland. So this panel will be moderated by Quentin Stallivieri from Dataxis. So Quentin, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Priscilla, for this nice introduction, and hi everyone. Welcome to this panel. Thank you for sticking with us for this last panel of the day, or welcome if you join us. Don't worry, you can find all the other panels in the replay for tomorrow. And we had a lot of interesting topics today, from smart TVs to operators' original content. And now this afternoon, we're going to focus in the specific context of Central and Eastern Europe. So with me, I have three experts, which Priscilla just named. So Nermina Brundik from A1, we have Karina Rompa from Play in Poland, and Peter Wasson from Deutsche Telekom. But first, I would like to tell you, dear viewers, because we never stress that enough, please ask your question in the chat. Don't hesitate to comment, to tell us what's on your mind, and to react to what our speakers say, to interact a bit with us, because that's the salt of this wonderful platform that we have today. And let me introduce now speakers. Starting with you, Nermina. You're working at group content level in A1, which means you're working on a lot of different markets, very diverse market, spanning thousands of kilometers from Belarus to North Macedonia. So can you please tell me more about that?
Yeah, so we are a company that is currently operating in 7 countries. And we have over 25 million customers. So we are operating in Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, Belarus, Slovenia, the Republic of North Macedonia, and the Republic of Serbia. And we are present in all of those markets, with the exception of Serbia, in TV. So yeah, that's around it. We are dealing with linear channels, with SVOD, with esports, with the whole range of services.
That's a very nice range, and we'll talk more about that later. Peter, you too are active in a whole lot of countries in CEE, that's right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I work for Deutsche Telekom in the European head office. Important to say that Europe in Germany, or in Deutsche Telekom, means Europe minus Germany. So we are operating only in the non-German territories, and these are 9 territories we're operating pay TV in, which is Greece, Hungary, Romania, Croatia, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Austria.
And last but not least, we have Karina. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh. Karina, you're active in the Polish market, which is probably one of the most complex markets in Poland. And you have actually a lot in common with T-Mobile from Deutsche Telekom, because you're prominently mobile operator.
Yes, I work for Play in Poland, which was was recently acquired by Iliad Group. So we are now part of a bigger structure, but I'm responsible for Polish market only. We are the largest mobile operator in Poland right now, and we a few years ago we launched our pay TV OTT service for our subscribers. Mm-hmm. And you're very right that Poland is very complex and very competitive market as well.
And I'm sure we'll learn about it further into this panel. So first, my question would be a very general one. So we already began to talk about aggregation of content, and I would like to ask which programs are considered key content to have in the different markets you operated. For example, in Poland, Karina, what is the unmissable content to have?
I think it depends on strategy and what you would like to deliver to your subscribers. So you can focus on some niche content, and then you accept that you are not go so big. But if you want to go wide and have lots of subscribers, as we would like to have, then you need to have must carry, must offer. Then you have to provide some sports, and it's not a surprise that movies and series are very popular these days. So we have our own platform with linear channels, but we also cooperate with external partners like Netflix, HBO, Amazon, and we see that this year will be extremely interesting in Poland. And we are expecting streaming wars even. And we don't want to compete that much with those global players. We see us as more like a content aggregator and partner for those big platforms than a competitor for them.
Is that these big platforms, is that something that is also important to have in your offer, that you cannot build an offer without them?
No, it's not like that. So absolutely not. It just depends which segment of the market you would like to address, what you want to deliver. Because we want to deliver Netflix and reach that target. That's why we cooperate with them. It's very similar with other platforms. So we want to focus on those target groups. That's why we would like to have partnerships with the big players, but we also see that linear TV is not dead yet, and it doesn't look that it will be soon. So linear channels are still very important.
And is that something that that speaks to you, Peter, seeing that some linear channels are really the core of the offer?
Yes, I always refer to that a bit like a menu card in the TV offering. Yeah, so if you look at the EPG, you see what's on, what content is available, but then maybe you don't digest the content live. So, I mean, through all these OTT services like Netflix, for example, to a certain extent, the customers are now educated to on-demand content, to consume content whenever they want to consume it. So they take this on-demand for granted now. So I think that linear is still important. Yes, it's a guardrail, so to say, but in the end, the on-demand content gets more and more important, or the on-demand version of the linear content gets more and more important.
Now that's interesting. That's something that we'll get back to. But if we talk about the sort of content that is really key to your offer, is it something that a common thread that can be seen on all the CE markets, or is each market very different?
I think, of course, they're all different, but in general, we are a conversion player everywhere. So in the end, it's important for us that we have attractive, balanced portfolio of content in our lineup. Yes, sports might be very important in most of the markets. It might not have the highest average market share in the world, but it's generating a lot of spikes. Yeah, so if you have something like a knockout round in football or a tennis final, so you have a very high viewership at that moment. And the fact that if I look at our customer base, I think that I would estimate that 70% of our customers have booked or subscribed to the sports packages in the markets where we offer them. So it's very important to our customers, but on the other hand, also local content is very important. I think these are the most important elements: local content and sports.
Yeah, Mina, do you agree with that?
Generally, yes. I mean, it's very dependent on the market. So the situation in each of our markets is very different, since we have 7 countries. So this is really dependent on the current situation. So in, for example, Bulgaria, we are the leading sports provider, and we have channels that we are producing ourselves. And really, I think most of the important sports rights are currently with us, and we are also selling those channels wholesale. So this is something that is in the Bulgarian market really a focus for us. On the other hand, we have territories where sport is really not the main focus. For example, in Slovenia, we have a really good offer that is specifically pick and mix. So you can exchange a type of content or a genre of content for a few channels of a different genre. And we've seen really good customer or subscriber reactions to this. On the other hand, we have a territory like Croatia, where I think they have a really good, interesting offer, where they have 3 different basic offers. One is a sports offer, one is an entertainment or movies offer, and the third one is a family offer, which is consistent of music and lifestyle and cartoons and things like that. So each customer or subscriber can pick whichever is the most important or the most interesting for them. But on the other hand, they have the flexibility to change this each month. So even though they can or do not have to be under contract with us, they can change each month what they really want to see. So this flexibility and the abundance of content there is something that I think they appreciate a lot. So yeah, depending on the market, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree with Peter and Nermina that local content is very important, but it doesn't mean that it's enough to have any local content. You need to have the most popular local content.
That's true.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Oh, that's true. I just was confirming that.
And since we're talking about abundance of content, which was the subject of the previous panel 10 minutes ago, do you think that your market, CEE markets, have reached like content saturation, that they are full of content, and that this flexibility that you offer, for example, Nermina, is an answer to that?
Yeah, in a way. On the other hand, I think Karina already mentioned, and Peter also, the keyword Netflix, but streaming services are really not that abundant in the CEE area, at least in the XU countries. So Netflix is available, but Disney Plus is not. HBO Max is currently not. There is no Peacock, there is no Hulu. So there's definitely a gap here in the market that's not present in the UK or in Germany or other territories. So this really gives us a chance to be a local player in this and offer on-demand content that they cannot get currently from these streaming services. Also, I mean, in general, the abundance of content is something that's present everywhere. And what I think is most important in this sense is something that a few people have already talked about on this conference, and that's discoverability of the content, ease of access, and the interface that you use. Because on the one hand, like, for example, I want to watch Grey's Anatomy. Me as a typical customer, I have no idea, and I don't want to have an idea where I'm going to find Grey's Anatomy. I just want to watch this specific series, that's it. And if I try to look it up on the internet, it says that it's produced by ABC. This means nothing to me. After that, it's probably on Disney Plus. Disney Plus is not available here. Where do I find that? What we want to do is have an interface. What we're currently doing in most of our countries is have an interface that will connect all of this, have a universal search, and be able to connect third-party apps with our linear offer and with our own SVOD offer, and kind of remove the hurdle for the subscriber to have to search and find things. The other problem is that if you go on Google and try to find where a specific series is being broadcasted, you'll probably get an answer where it's broadcasted in America. You won't get an answer where it's broadcasted in Croatia. So I think that's something that might be a bit problematic to a specific subset of our subscribers. And this is something that we're trying to work with them on and try to, you know, remove these obstacles to them.
So in Poland, you have websites where they collect all the data from all platforms, and you can see where you can find particular series or movies. But we also see that it's a problem for subscribers. That's why we decided to launch Android TV set-top box. It's easy to integrate new apps. It's Google Store is open. You can download any app you want, and search works rather okay. And as I know, they're still developing that, so it will be only better.
Yeah, it's the same in Germany. Actually, we also have an app called Wer streamt es, where you can also look for a title and then you see whether it's for sale or whether it's somewhere in Netflix or Disney Plus or the likes. But I agree with you that we have to deliver a kind of search experience that spans across all content. So all across OTT, across the linear, across your own content in a personalized way. So I think that's the user experience we need to have. My product colleagues always say, yeah, content might be king, but user experience is King Kong. Yeah, so that's the most important thing for them.
That's a really nice expression. And I totally agree with that. The user experience is also very important.
Then the question would be, how do you arrange things that the subscriber is not afraid of King Kong? Because I'm sure there are some markets in CEE where OTT services are not really well known at the moment, so you have to present it to the customer correctly. Am I right?
I think that OTT services and streaming services have not the impact in CEE as they have it in Western Europe, for two reasons, or for three reasons actually. The availability, because as I think Karina already mentioned, that Disney Plus has not yet launched in CEE region. It might come by the end of the year. We don't know at which price. The rate card price is €8.99 currently in Western Europe, and that is actually the second point. €8.99 for a streaming service, and we talk about countries where we have an ARPU of €10. I think it's quite difficult to monetize that. So either we find ways how to integrate that into our product as a best aggregator and at a price discount for the customers. That might be interesting, but we don't know yet. And the third thing is localization. I mean, a lot of these content in smaller markets has not yet been localized. And that, of course, is another hurdle for the customers.
Mm. And for example, in Poland, it doesn't only, localization, the way of localization is also important. So even subtitles are not enough. You need to have voiceover, which is sounds strange probably for other citizens, but for Polish, it's very natural.
Mm-hmm. And I think in the Polish market, which is quite big, you can scale, you can have some ROI on this localization, but on smaller markets, maybe thinking about Croatia or Macedonia, this gets way more difficult, right?
I mean, voiceover, I think, is quite cheap to do that. Technical perspective. If you look at a market like Hungary, Hungary requires 100% dubbed, full dubbed content, and the Hungarian language is much longer than the English language. So if you have a sentence in Hungarian language, it's longer than English, and then if you do a dubbing, it's quite difficult. So that makes it difficult and expensive. Other markets like Romania and Greece, it's easier. We have subtitling. So we have a zoo of different localization methods in our footprint.
Yeah, this is also true for most of our, I mean, we are not dubbing, we're mostly subtitling, with the exception of Austria, of course. But the CE markets are definitely our markets currently used to subtitling, but we have a lot of small countries. And this is posing a problem, not for us currently, but the streaming services that have launched in most of our markets have launched not localized. And this is evident in the number of subscribers that they have in the XU territory. So that's definitely true with us. On the other hand, OTT by itself, so we have a really good, if I do say so myself, we have a really good OTT service that has very extensive on demand. And when we launched it a few years ago, we actually weren't prepared for the type of explaining that we'll have to do in some of our markets. So what I mean by that is that we have tried pushing it to our subscribers, and it's a combination of linear and SVOD. And it has currently the whole HBO Go catalog included in the SVOD catalog that we already have. So it's really extensive, really big. And when we launched it and when we gave it to our subscribers, most of them were watching only the linear part. And we were kind of wondering, why is this happening? Why is linear still the most interesting thing on an OTT service that has such extensive SVOD? And then we called a few of them from our customer service and realized they were under the impression that the whole SVOD catalog was TVOD. It's not that they weren't aware of the term of SVOD. They just weren't expecting it, I think, from a telecom operator. And on the other hand, it was maybe a part of them really weren't aware of how this works. And when they realized that they don't have to pay for each individual title that was featured there, they started using it and were very happy with the service. So I think there's still a bit of a curve of education to do with a specific subset of our subscribers in the CE market.
Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, you just mentioned one of those gaps that you were talking about, that an operator can fill in when there's no SVOD platform that suits the market correctly with localization. I know that in another panel we heard about Slovak Telecom having their own kids channel because there was no localized kids channel in Slovakia. So do you see in your market also some opportunities for operator to edit their own content?
Well, you mentioned Tuki TV in Slovakia already, which is one of our flagships, I would say, in our footprint on content. I think in general, of course, we cannot compete with the big SVOD players, and we cannot invest 17 billion euros into content like Netflix is doing per year. So what I always call this a bit like selective differentiation. Yeah, because you have to have the right market for that to monetize it. You have to have people for that, the skills, the resources, and that works great with Tuki in Slovakia. In Greece, we have our own history channel called Cosmote History. The triggering event was also that there was no good historic content available. And at the peak of the crisis in 2015, I think it was, the Greek team decided to create their own history channel, focused only on Greek history, which was a huge success because in the middle of the crisis, people again saw what they could be proud of their own history. And that was working extremely well, and it's working extremely well today. So it depends on the market where you do it, yeah. And you have to have the right reasons for doing it. Just combining some international content, that doesn't work. But you have to find something which is really differentiating you.
Amina, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's always with us specific on the market, the content production. And one of the issues is that in some of our markets, we are currently not allowed to do content production because some of our countries have laws that prevent telecoms being also content distributors. So this is something that is limiting in some of the countries. On the other hand, we have the example that I've already talked about, Bulgaria, where we have sports channels that are really kind of a differentiator for us, and we started it with them exclusively, and now we're doing wholesale of them. So it's dependent on the market with us. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have really good example in Austria, but this is not CEE, so maybe not relevant to this specific conversation.
Yeah, but it's interesting to notice that in some market, if I understand well, people almost expect you to provide this premium sport or this particular thing. It becomes a part of the brand.
Yes, this is correct. But I think in most of the markets, we are present in a specific sense, and people expect something from us. Be it in Bulgaria, it's sport. In Austria, it's we have this A1 now channel that is user generated and specific for young audiences. In Macedonia, we are one of the biggest. So it's different in each of the markets. Yeah.
In Poland, because we have mobile roots and we are known that we are good from that, we needed time to convince our subscribers that we can deliver them also TV. They just didn't expect that from us. But we are building that since few years, and we see that it works. So it's a good way to go, I think.
That's an interesting point, because this TV offer, was it at the beginning an add-on to mobile only?
Yes, at the beginning it was only web service and mobile apps, but it wasn't big success. It wasn't fail, but it wasn't big success. We wanted to achieve more. That's why we decided to go for bigger screen in the main room at home, and that's why we launched the set-top box, and it changed everything. So it's totally different consumption, and just now we are just normal TV for many of our subscribers, and the main source of TV as well.
Mm-hmm. And did you see the consumption habits evolve going from this mobile OTT to the big screen? Are the content really different?
Absolutely. So subscribers on big screen watch much more than on mobile screens, and they're expecting also more content. It's easier to sell TVOD to them. They are more keen to activate Amazon or Netflix account on the TV, because our set-top box also have that possibility, so you can do that. And so it's totally different. It's much more successful. We are very happy with that.
Mm-hmm. I would like to go back to what Nermina said about regulation that, for example, restrains operators to operate channels. Is it something that you, for example, in Poland, see that the regulation can impact negatively or positively your content strategy?
I think regulation helped us, because if not regulation, we would not have must carry must offer, and we see big demand for that for those channels. Because of regulation, we were also able to license the most popular commercial news channel. It was regulation of European Commission after Discovery acquired TVN. So it helped us to gain more content for our subscribers, which they really want to watch.
Is it something that you saw too, Peter, the effect of must-carry regulation?
Well, what I see currently is that in some markets, especially in highly saturated markets, that channels go out of the must-carry, must-offer segment and go behind the paywall. And when they have a high market share or high viewing share, then they increase the prices like hell. That's something which is really an issue in some markets. I don't want to mention markets and companies now, but it's really something which we see in some territories, and that is something which is actually the biggest risk for content budgets currently, in my opinion.
Yeah, because that brings me to the question of cost constraints. So how do you see these constraints evolving? I suppose cost of content can only go one way.
It should not go one way, because I mean, in saturated markets, the biggest constraints, of course, are increasing costs, because if you don't get additional revenues and your costs are rising, then your net margin goes down. That's a simple formula. And I personally see the value of international linear content currently too high. And I think this should go down. And actually, I see the value of linear content as too high. I think as a target model, we should only pay for the on-demand and PVR rights. Linear content is something which is just there, and then you pay for the additional rights. But another thing is, of course, the spiral of sports rights, which is usually only going up, especially when two players in one territory try to get these rights. And this is something I really cannot understand, because I doubt the value of exclusive sports, especially in saturated markets again. I doubt that this is paying off in the end. And I
I totally agree. All the sports rights are overpaid for sure. We have
totally overpaid.
Recent information for Poland that Viaplay acquired Formula One rights for Poland territory from 2023. So it's probably even more expensive than it was when 11 Sports acquired that.
I mean, it depends on your strategy. If you are a newbie in a market, you want to gain share and you want to gain scale, then it might make sense to invest into exclusive sports, because then you can roll up the market from behind. But in general, I think it doesn't make sense. And I think Andrej Miklanek in the previous session mentioned it already, that in the Czech and Slovak territory, there's a fantastic channel called Premier Sports, which is broadcasting the Premier League to everybody on every platform. And I think that is a very reasonable way how to do that.
Yeah, it's an intelligent way of sharing the cost and making the best content available to the most people as possible. Now, Mina, do you have any example who work like that in your countries?
I mean, I just want to get back to what Peter was saying about local broadcasters and the cost of local broadcasters. This is, in some of our markets, this is a very specific situation where we do have the Institute of Mass Carry in the law, but it's not being used and it's not being enforced currently. And what happens is, like you said, Peter, you have to have a specific, they're behind the paywall, but they're actually not behind the paywall, because this is terrestrial television, but you cannot live without them and you cannot not broadcast them. And what I think is making the situation more complicated is that subscribers see these channels as terrestrial television. They know that they can get a DVB-T and pick it up essentially from the air, and they consider this as something that is free. But this is definitely not free for us, and we are paying steep prices for it. So yeah, it would be good to have a mechanism of control for this seemingly free-to-air televisions that are really not free-to-air, but our subscribers have no idea how this specific part works. On the part of sports, yes, I agree with you, Peter. This has been increasing in the last few years into the stratosphere. But on the other hand, we've been seeing not only specifically in the CEE market, but in general, maybe kind of a standstill on this since the current situation. I'm not going to mention which one, because we've been talking about it for the last year and a half. But yeah, I think the sports rights, or let's say some of the sports rights prices, are now currently either flat or decreasing a bit. So I don't know how long this is going to be valid for, but currently, yeah, the trend seems to be turning a bit.
It's something that then eases
that we do not operate in markets where the price is going down, really.
No, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the bids for sports are currently open, but I think the trends are changing a bit. For example, I've seen it was last week, I think, that BT or British Telecom is trying to get rid of their whole sports production and trying to sell it. This is not the first operator that I've heard in the last few months that's been doing this. I think the domestic rights for Premier League have been sold for the next few years for the same price that they were in the last cycle, and this is probably unheard of in the last 10 years, because they were rising and rising and rising steeply each year. So yeah, some of the things are changing, but we'll see if this is long term or not, because on the other hand, you have NENT, which is pushing really hard into buying sports. You have also streaming services that are really getting kind of their hands or feet dipped into it. So yeah, we'll see.
Amazon can buy all these rights, but it has no reason to do that. It's just too expensive.
And I have to correct Namina because the Premier League rights were cheaper in the last cycle because of the Sky BT sharing deal they were having. So that was already a step down, but it doesn't help us in our markets in the end, because in the markets we operate in, we have two lunatics who are fighting each other for sports rights, and there's only one way, which is up. So that's a bit of a problem.
Two lunatics.
Yeah. Okay, and if we move on now, I would like to go back a bit to what we already mentioned a bit about the evolution of offers. So you're telling me, you told me that linear channels are very important still, but that they are a bit overpriced, if I understand well. And for example, that's what you say, Peter, I think. So do you see these linear channels getting less and less important? Do you think that linear is eventually going to disappear and the content will be available on demand? Or is it something that's really science fiction? Nermina, for example, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was thinking that the question was going to be for Peter. Could you repeat that?
So maybe Peter can begin to answer and then you can rebound on this.
Good.
So I was more referring to international linear content. So the international segment is getting less relevant in my opinion. So we had the experience in markets where we in the end did not come to a commercial agreement and we took them out, that the customer reaction was very limited, even for big players. So I think this is overrated and overpaid in my perspective. When it comes to linear content per se, so linear content of whatever it is, I think, as I said earlier, I think it will still be there, it will still remain. It will maybe get less important, but the content which is on linear, that has to be available on demand, and there we are fine.
Okay, I'm caught up to it now. Okay, so yeah, I think that the importance of linear will still be very prominent in the next few years. I'm not one to make prophecies about the death of linear, definitely. But I agree with Peter on there being some examples where we've switched off international providers and actually nothing very terrible happened to us. I think one part of it is that we have had a long cooperation with a lot of our partners, and we really aren't aware of if we can do it without them or we cannot. And mostly the answer to that is we can. On the other hand, I think we should also focus on younger generations of subscribers that are currently coming, and that they do not expect us to have 300, 400 channels in our offer. They just expect a really good curation of content, and that includes also the creation of linear channels. So they want cartoons, they want sports, they want national televisions, they want movies, but they don't need 40 movie channels. They need a few really good ones. So yeah, making the distinction between what's nice to have and what we need is important, very important, I think.
I saw Karina nodding the whole time. You agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with Nermina. That is our strategy. We do not deliver 200 channels to our subscribers. We have 90, and it's we have some lacks. We would like to add something, but we are in a tough negotiation process with some of the broadcasters. But we don't want to have all channels which are available on the market, even if they are for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the time of massive content offers is ended, if I understand.
It's only mass in your EPG.
Mm-hmm. And we have a question in the chat concerning this, saying, good afternoon, all panelists. Would you consider adding new international linear channels as a means to give you a competitive edge or as a novelty, given the relatively saturated markets? So what do you think, Karina, for example?
I can say that we think about that situations case by case. So if channel is really attractive, have something amazing in lineup, then we can consider that. But it doesn't mean that we need to have 10 more channels or 5 new channels. We just think about that case by case.
Mm-hmm. Nermina, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with Karina. I mean, this is a question that we've actually answered like 2 minutes ago. So it's something we're always interested in talking about it, of course, and we're not going to have a blank no answer to something before we've seen the specifics of it. But I'd say that that channel would have to be something very interesting that is not currently present in the market, and something that we would consider in that specific case to give us a certain edge. But yeah, just willy-nilly switching on channels that we expect might be interesting to some people, but are practically a copy of 5 different channels that we currently have in our offer, is not something that we're interested in doing currently. What do you think, Peter?
I think I again fully agree, because I doubt the competitive edge of another linear channel, to be honest. And I would only I mean, in general, all these decisions are made by the local teams. Yeah? So we don't do that in the head office. It is something which is local decision to put in new channels or to take out channels. But if you ask me, I would only do this as a replacement for something. So I would not add additional channels. If somebody wants to come in new into the portfolio, it has to be a replacement.
Or something extraordinary.
Yeah, or something extraordinary, and of course with full on-demand and PVR, etc., and so forth.
Yes.
So just another linear channel, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, this is a very good point that you're saying, Peter, because we've had offers from specifically linear channels, and they're giving us linear rights. This is, I think, not good enough for most of the operators currently in the market, because we are expecting really to have the full interactive rights, a catch-up that is longer than 48 hours, if at all possible, on demand, etc., etc., etc. So just the basic linear offer with nothing else is not really that attractive to us anymore.
Yeah, the rest is Stone Age.
Well, if I understand well, what's interesting is not the linear packaging of the content, it's the content itself that you can propose.
Yeah. And there's a strong shift to on-demand. That's a fact.
Well, I think it's a very nice conclusion to this panel that, once again, what's important is the content. It's not very polemic, but it's very nice. Thank you very much for being with us today. Peter, Nermina, Karina, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to you, dear audience. And we have now reached the end of the conference. So on behalf of Dataxis, I would like to thank our speakers, our attendees, for their ongoing support for making this conference possible. I would like, of course, to thank our sponsors. Please note once again that all sessions will be available on replay from tomorrow, so you can watch us again and again in a loop every day when you want. Stay tuned on dataxis.com for more conferences, starting with our Nextv series Europe coming up next month. And thank you very much. Have a nice evening and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.